what is the optical system in a rifle scope, any rifle scope, doing, and how does one go about developing it? Like, how do you develop it to make it really good? Um, I mean, you're playing around with light, right? And you can change coatings, you can change curvatures, you can change spacing, alignment, orientation. What's that like?
So I've heard it said, and I believe this is really true, that optical design is as much of an art as it is a science. And I think that's really true because there's so many variables and there's so many ways to get to the same endpoint. And so really what it comes down to is you're trying to manipulate, in a rifle scope anyways, you're trying to manipulate the light in a way that gives you a magnified image, and you want that image to be recreated in a magnified way that's as close to being the way that your naked eye sees it, but just bigger.
Okay.
But every time you know when that light gets bent through all these different surfaces, so in the AMG we actually have 17 glass elements in that the scope. So there's a
Is
lot
the
of them.
reticle included in that?
That includes the reticle,
Okay.
which has a cover plate on it. So those are 2 elements, but there's 15 other lens elements that have curvatures and thicknesses, and each lens element is a different chemical formula, so it's a different lens type and everything like that. So there's a huge amount of factors when you start adding all those up that affect it, and so you never truly. You never truly perfectly recreate the image. There's always a trade-off. You're trading different things off. So you're just trying to get as close to that as possible once you get through the whole system. And so you're definitely going to be making some trade-offs no matter what you do. It's not going to be perfect, but you want to get as close to the ideal as possible.
So, like, when an optical engineer like Will, who we have here, goes to school, for example, are they learning like the different chemical makeups of different types of glass and different coatings and things? Is that kind of what they're playing around with? Like when he's on the computer there and he's got, I wish we could show it. It's probably all proprietary or something, but it's like, I remember it was like a black screen. He had these lenses and there's different color spectrums or wavelength spectrums or something like that, he's changing things with the lenses. Is that kind of, in curvatures, is that what they primarily learn and develop into this art? You kind of?
Yeah, I would say no. Like the art part of it more comes from the specifics that are involved with rifle scopes. Probably what they're learning more in school is more that's more hard science, and so they're learning. They're learning about the different wavelengths of light. They're learning about what happens when you have a lens with a certain curvature and a certain physical characteristics. So, one of the things that determines how a lens bends light is called the index of refraction. And so they'll be learning about stuff like that. And usually the examples that you're using in school are a lot simpler. And and they're more they're not examples that are specific to rifle scopes. And rifle scopes are really unique in the fact that I would say the vast majority of optics that are used in the world, whether it be sensors for like in your vehicle or camera lenses or whatever, are what we call focal optics. So they're a lens that's focusing an image onto a plane or a sensor or something like that. But rifle scopes are unique in that they're called afocal. And so what that means is that they're not actually focusing the light down to a focus point. When the light exits the scope, it's actually what's called collimated. And so it's like I'm trying to think of an easy way to explain that, but at collimated light, it means that all the rays are parallel coming out, and because what's happening is your eye is doing the final focusing onto your retina.
Oh yeah,
so it's preparing the light to be focused by your eye.
Huh.
Whereas like a camera lens, obviously your eye...
You're focusing it onto a sensor.
Yeah, you're focusing it onto a sensor.
And you can manufacture a bazillion sensors that are all exactly the same.
Right. They're always, they're almost always going to be flat.
Yeah.
So it's known. Whereas, your eye, your retina is like that sensor. And so it's sort of like, you could think of it as like if you already had a little camera lens and you were designing another lens in front of that camera lens. So you'd have to design the light to exit that camera lens in a way that it goes through the little camera lens so that it focuses on the sensor.
Very, very
That
interesting.
makes sense.
So your eye ends up being part of the optical system. Your
Yeah,
actual,
absolutely.
Your actual eye.
It's like the final step in the process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Now, is that something?
Wild.
So that must be something that an optical engineer has to consider. Obviously, then
Yep.
is that is there like a standard eye that they that they try and standardize everything to, or since everybody's eye is different, is that always kind of the tough part of this?
You standardize it usually towards, and that's what I said, the light being collimated, which would be essentially what an eye in its relaxed state would be looking at. So so that's the thing about your eyes. It's really amazing. You have a lens in your eye, and it's actually flexible. So you have this muscle that actually stretches it and compresses it, so the lens actually gets more curvature or less curvature in your eye. And so if you're focusing on something that's close in front of you, it's compressing that lens and it's giving it more curvature. And if you look far away, that muscle's stretching it and it's flattening the lens in your eye.
Oh,
And so it's changing the focus point. What it's doing is it's changing the image to keep it focused on your retina as the object you're looking at changes distance from you.